What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Back to 12 podcast. I'm RC Maxfield, and there's a lot to discuss after that. Gut-wrenching is probably the way I would describe it in terms of that loss that Texas Tech had on Saturday. Already kind of gave my thoughts about it, but we'll discuss it a little bit more. We'll also look ahead to tomorrow night's matchup up in Manhattan, a place that, truth be told, the Red Raiders have struggled with historically. They just don't win a lot of games there. Maybe it's a little different this year. We'll break down that game, as well as I feel like I'm trying to talk people off the ledge here in terms of I'm seeing a lot of people say that, oh, this Texas Tech team isn't a tournament team. I don't think we're watching the same team, but I will back up my side in terms of why I think they are clearly an NCAA tournament team and why they have plenty of opportunities to prove that they are one. So we'll get to that here in a bit. But before we do, I already have the poll question up. I kind of want to just simple Y for yes or N for no in the comments as well. Let me know where you're watching from. But the question of today's live is, will Texas Tech make the NCAA tournament? Simple Y for yes, N for no. Nothing crazy. Nothing crazy because I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm in the minority here. I really don't understand. Maybe it's just the select echo chamber of Texas Tech fans that I am interacting with that think they are not going to make the tournament. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. And I appreciate y'all spending some of y'all's Monday night with me a little bit early here. But again, let me know where you're watching from, and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. All right. Let's discuss the Iowa State game a little bit. And I mentioned it in the recap video here on the channel. You can go watch that if you'd like. But also, I'm going to talk about it here too. So I think I think Grant McCaslin's the guy. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I love him as the coach. He is 100% the guy. But I strongly disagreed with a lot of what he said in the post-game press conference. Now, I want to preface what I'm about to say in terms of my opinion that, yes, it's a basketball game. A lot more goes into just two specific plays, right? But I can't help but think that, yes, you did lose a 13-point lead. However, you had the opportunity twice at the end of regulation to ice that game at the free throw line, and you didn't do it. Okay, you had Elijah Hawkins go to the free throw line up 3 with about 20 seconds left, a 90% free throw shooter, plus actually 90+% free throw shooter, and he goes 1 for 2. Okay, keeping it a 3-point game. Subsequently, Iowa State goes down, gets a layup. It's a 1-point game. No harm, no foul. Actually, there is a foul. They foul Chance McMillan. Okay, Chance McMillan goes to the free throw line yet again, another free throw shooter who is 90+ from the line, okay? He goes 1 for 2. What happens with 6.3 seconds left? Iowa State goes down. Whether you want to say the guy traveled in Jefferson on that game-tying layup in the end of regulation, it doesn't matter, in my opinion. If you make your free throws at the end of regulation, the game's over, okay? Most notably the one with Elijah Hawkins, because you're playing a free throw game at that point, okay? You're basically playing where, okay, let's just say Iowa State goes down and they get the quick 2, which they would probably do because Texas Tech isn't going to foul. They waste about 5-6 seconds. You go from 20 to what, 15, 14, then they foul. That's going to take another 2 or 3 seconds. Now you're at 10, you're up 2, you send Chance, Elijah to the line, whatever it may be. Okay, you go up 3 at worst to make it to where that they have to take a 3, right? They had no timeouts left, so that was game right there. Right? But you had a chance to go up 4 or make it 3 twice, and you didn't do it. That's what lost you the basketball game, in my opinion. But again, just my opinion. I understand that there's other things, because when I watched that game on Saturday, what was the biggest qualm that you had with Texas Tech going into that basketball game was, at least in my opinion, was they were not physical enough. Right? They were physical enough to take the now number 2 team in the country, Iowa State, to overtime. And to be honest with you, Texas Tech was the better team for 30 plus minutes of that game. That's why that loss hurts so much, is because you were clearly, for a majority of that game, the better team than the now number 2 Iowa State Cyclones. That's not a debate. If someone tries to tell you up in Ames otherwise, they need to go get their eyes checked or simply don't know ball. Okay? Like, Texas Tech was the better team. So that's obviously something that really, really is frustrating. I'm right there with you guys. But again, it comes down to it at the end of the day. Make your free throws in clutch situations, and you don't even have the opportunity to allow them to have the chance to kick the door through and walk through that door in overtime and leave Lubbock with a win. That's really what it comes down to, right? Again, 2 90+% free throw shooters go 1 for 2 there at the end of the game with 20 seconds or less on the clock. That's the reason you lost the game. Were there other things that attributed you getting to that moment to where those 2 critical plays didn't go your way? Absolutely. And you had the chance to win in overtime. And I hear people saying that D5 had a good look there at the end. I don't know about you, but going the full court in 4.1 seconds with the defender on your hip and shooting a floater with your offhand is not an easy shot. Okay? Would you view Texas Tech differently if they beat Iowa State? That is an obvious yes. But again, Texas Tech took the now number 2 team in the country to overtime, lost by 1. And don't take my word for it. We'll look at it here in a little bit later on the live in terms of the metrics that you need to know and pay attention to, and not just terrible bracketology brackets that, truth be told, hand up for accountability. You know how it is here on the channel. I love looking at those brackets too, but right now is way too early. I don't start looking at bracketology from ESPN, CBS, or wherever you get your brackets from until about mid to late February, because right now there is so much in front. Texas Tech has 16 games left on their schedule, including tomorrow night at Kansas State. They have plenty of time to solidify their resume. And to be honest with you, I don't even think their resume is that bad. I was in an argument on Twitter about that today, and okay, their resume in terms of the non-conference slate was bad. Okay, so was UConn's last year, who had 283. So was Illinois last year. All of these teams that I'm listing right here were lower than 260 in terms of their non-con schedule, and they were all 4 seeds or at least 6 seeds or higher, BYU was in that mix, and Iowa State was in there as well. Iowa State had the 323rd best non-con schedule last year, and they still were a top 2 seed. I'm not worried about Texas Tech in that regard. We'll go a little bit more in depth there in a minute. But in terms of the Iowa State game, man, that just felt like somebody absolutely kicked you right where you don't want to get kicked, right? Just absolutely brutal in that regard. All right, be sure to like the video. Let me know where you're watching from. We got Kyle from, I always butcher this name. Am I going to say this right? Is it Hutto? Obviously, the home of Will Hammond. Hopefully, I didn't mess that up. We got Roger in here saying 30% of Red Raider Nation believes our men's basketball team will miss the tournament, ? And then a few laughing face emojis. Apparently. And then Roger obviously discusses the free throws as well in terms of 3 great free throw shooters. Yeah, D5 even missed some in overtime too. You were in a great spot if you were Texas Tech. Matt, watching from Philly, says, do they look like a tournament team? Absolutely. Will they make the tournament? I hope so. Shitty non-con schedule with no key win yet. Better win 10 in conference or could get bubbly. I agree, but at the same time, I don't. I feel like people are – I don't know, man. I think 10 wins isn't even a bubble team. I think that they're in. If you win 10 games in the Big 12, you're in, okay? I think, no joke, from the SEC and Big 12, I think you could have 20 teams get in the NCAA tournament this year. I think 10 wins is fine. And the crazy part is I had Texas Tech winning 12 to 13 conference games. That's still very much on the table. Very much on the table. We'll talk about the next 5 games for Texas Tech and how you got to put some together here in terms of the wins. But you're still well within the realm of possibility of winning 12 games in the conference slate, right? Very much still in you got to go 10-6, right, to end the year. I don't think that that's crazy. And we'll talk about why here in a second in terms of, well, at least one of the games and then the other 4 after it in terms of why I think Texas Tech could be in a really good spot here in the not too distant future. All right, let's jump into this K-State game in absolute woof. I mean, my God, has there been a worse team in terms of expectations than the Kansas State Wildcats this year in all of college basketball? You paid Coleman Hawkins $3 million in the portal, and the bro is a bona fide role player. Now, again, good for him. Get your bag, young man. I ain't going to hate on that. But, man, are they just not good? I mean, when you watch them play, Kansas State, I truly cannot help but look at it and think to myself, what is happening here? Because I truly believe Jerome Tang is a good coach. But you look at this, you lost by 13 to Oklahoma State. You lost by 30 at home to Houston. Again, Houston, very, very good basketball team. They should not be beating you by 30 on your home floor. All right. You lose at TCU by 1. You did beat Cincinnati. Good for you on that front. But you lost by 19 to Wichita State. You lost to Drake. You lost to St. John's. Congratulations. You beat UR Pine Bluff. But, I mean, you lost to Liberty at home. I mean, just some really, really bad losses by K-State this year. Now, again, I mentioned a little earlier, Texas Tech has struggled in Manhattan. The Red Raiders are 6-18 or 6-18 all time. So out of 24 games, they've only won 6 up in Manhattan. And their last win came in the 2020-2021 season. Now, Texas Tech enters the 5th game of its Big 12 schedule, leading the conference, shooting 50.5% from the field with a 58.4 effective field goal percentage. And they're shooting 77.7% from the free throw line. Wish it could have been a little bit higher, like we discussed earlier. Tech is 2nd in the conference and 13th nationally in scoring at 85.4 points per game this season and shooting 39.7% from 3 as a team. Just like we had talked about in the offseason leading into this season, I said it should not shock you if Texas Tech shoots damn near 40% from 3 as a team. They have some absolute snipers on this roster. Now, when it comes to the odds for this game, the Red Raiders are favored by 6.5 with the total over under set at 146.5. Quick math, take the 6.5 away from 146. They think this game is going to end up around 77, 71 or 76.5 to, well, 70. Obviously, you can't end with a half, so it's going to be in that region. But you got David and Gesson. He leads the Wildcats in points per game with 12.7 and rebounds per game with 7.7. Amarillo native, a guy that Texas Tech recruited for a little bit, and then you can blame the guy that liked to have a cigar or two on top of the womble with a tent, if you know, for not landing this guy. Brendan Housen from Amarillo. He's the Wildcats' best shooter, shooting 41.1% from 3, their second leading scorer as well. Then you've got Coleman Hawkins, who I mentioned, $3 million man, allegedly. Again, that was the report when he signed with Kansas State. He is 3rd on the Wildcats in scoring and averaging 10.7, 7 rebounds, 3.9 assists on awful shooting splits. He's shooting 41% from the field, 56.2% from the free throw line, and 32.1% from 3. That made me almost throw up on my desk. Okay. Overall, let's be real here. Texas Tech is going to have to play a lot better than they did against UCF. But the way that Texas Tech has trended the last 3 games, that was not the team that the Red Raider Nation saw in the Big 12 opener, right? Like, they have looked like a very good team. You blow the brakes off of Utah. You beat a very good BYU team at the Marriott Center out there in Provo, and you're literally one shot away from beating the number 2 team in the country, okay? You're a good basketball team, all right? That's the fact, but you're going to a place that you've got some demons at. If we're just being honest about it, you do not historically play well in Manhattan. That being said, you are leaps and bounds better than the Wildcats. I mean, it is not remotely close, even though y'all were picked to finish very similarly in the Big 12 preseason media poll, right? You should win this game if you are Texas Tech. If they don't, okay, we should have a conversation about things. But right now, my opinion is they will go in to this game and they should have JT Toppin. I just saw Matt's question. They should. That's the assumption right now. Could things change? Sure. But it sounds like he's going to play in this game. And you are going up there against the team that defensively, which is surprising because when I think Jerome Tang, I think actually good defense. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but they are really bad defensively, okay? And you are really good offensively. You should be able to score the ball at will against this Kansas State team. You think about these right here, all right? Going through my notes. Overall, Texas Tech is going to have to play a great game against Kansas State team that is third worst in terms of defense in the Big 12 per game in terms of points per game, allowing 71.8. Opponents are shooting 36.1% from three, which for the opponent is the second best in the Big 12. That means it's the second worst in terms of three-point defense are the K-State Wildcats. Opponents are shooting 44% from the field against Kansas State, which is second best for their opponents, and that means they are the second worst defense in the Big 12 when it comes to defensive shooting percentage for their opposition, right? Overall, Texas Tech is leaps and bounds, like I said, better than Kansas State. This is not a debate. And if somebody says otherwise, they clearly don't know ball, okay? That being said, it is hard as hell to win on the road in the Big 12. And again, I know I sound like a broken record. This is a place you struggle to win at, okay? If you can win this game, which you should, you are the more talented team. But as we know, talented teams fall quite often in the Big 12 on the road. If you win this game, you are in a great position to go home and play an Arizona team that, if you look at their record, you're thinking to yourself, what I'm about to say, RC, you're crazy. Arizona's playing like a top 10 team in the country right now. They started out of the gates really slow. They looked really bad, but they're playing up to their potential now. And now you have a chance to beat them on Saturday. Hopefully it's not a look-ahead game, because if it is, I promise you this, Kansas State is talented enough to close that talent gap between the Red Raider roster and the Wildcats roster and beat you on their home floor. You can't be looking ahead to Arizona. You can't be thinking about the past in Iowa State. You got to be focused there. And Jerome Tang's crew will be ready, but I think Texas Tech is clearly the better team, and so does Vegas. Again, 6.5 points on the road in the Big 12 is a massive number. Okay, for those that don't know, like betting-wise, you usually get about 3 points, 2.5 at the worst in terms of just being the home team. Okay, so that means on a neutral court, Texas Tech would be about a double-digit favorite against Kansas State. You're the better team. Prove it. Go out there and beat the Wildcats' ass. It's that simple. All right. Real quick, Matt asked, is Toppin good to go? From everything I've heard, I haven't heard otherwise that he wouldn't be able to go. In fact, I think Texas Tech tweeted something out in terms of the flight, right? Didn't they send out a picture with Toppin getting on the flight and everything? Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be good to go. JT will be also. Big chips guy apparently in this photo. Big chips guy. What's your favorite kind of chip? Let me know in the chat. I have thoughts. I have a lot of good thoughts on chips. Really good thoughts. I know I'm digressing here. That's probably my ADHD, but anyway, let me know your favorite chips in the chat. All right. Why is Kerwin not playing more? I'm assuming is what you meant. Oh yeah, Walton. There you go, Jerry. Sorry. To be honest with you, he's in his own head. This is just my opinion. Walton isn't playing a lot because I think he is not doing the things that I think make him a really good player for his specific role. If Kerwin Walton dribbles the basketball, I inherently panic. He needs to just run around. As soon as he catches the ball, shoot it if the opportunity is there. If not, continue with the ball movement and go try and find more space offensively. That's his role. Right? And if he's not shooting the ball, go help and crash the boards. Or if he's asked to go back and be that first line of defense in terms of, the outlet and making sure nobody's, a cherry picker, as they say, up at the rec center that you play at, by all means, do that. But that's his role offensively. And then defensively, it's hard to hide Kerwin Walton and his defensive inefficiencies in terms of, does he have a few plays here and there where you're like, all right, that'll boy Kerwin. That'll boy use your link. That'll way to keep your feet in front, right? Like, yes, he has those plays, but normally he is a guy that you're going to target if you are the opposing team. And it is hard to really hide a guy like that when you have a guy like Elijah Hawkins, who, again, smaller guy, solid, pesky defender on the perimeter. But again, if you get him down on the block, game over. That's 2 points right there for the other team. So it's hard to do that. Again, I just wish Kerwin wouldn't try to do so much off the bounce. I think he's an elite shooter. I think we all know that, but I don't understand why he's starting still. I really don't understand it. Your best defender on the perimeter is Kevin Overton. he should be starting over Kerwin Walton, in my opinion. I don't think it happens anytime soon, but maybe it does. I don't know. But I think Kevin Overton helps you win on the defensive end far more than the opportunity and potential that Kerwin Walton helps you on the offensive end, if that makes any sense. Appreciate the question, Jerry, and appreciate you tuning in. Justin, if we lose in Manhattan, I will be very concerned. Otherwise, I have no worries about a tournament odds. Justin, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, man. Like, if they lose tomorrow night in Manhattan, we're going to have some serious conversations. We will have to have some serious conversations because I think there's levels to this. Let's just say there's, 5 tiers in the Big 12 in terms of where teams are at. You're going to have Iowa States of the world, the Kansases of the world, probably in tier 1, right? There's probably 3 to 4 teams, depending on how you divvy up these tiers up in tier 1. I think Texas Tech is firmly in tier 2, right? Kansas State's in tier 4. I'm sorry. Like, Kansas State is closer to Utah than they are you. Okay? And what did Texas Tech do to Utah out in Salt Lake City? Beat the absolute you-know-what out of them, right? I'm not saying you should beat the you-know-what out of Kansas State because I do think Kansas State is more talented than Utah, but you should handily win this game and cover. I think you should probably win this game in that 9 to 12 range tomorrow night. And if you don't, specifically if you lose, yeah, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a very, very serious conversation at that point. Cool, Connor. Like the hair. I appreciate it. Got the haircut today. It was getting a little chia petty. You know what I'm saying? Can't be looking like a chia pet. Can't be looking like a chia pet on camera. Not a great look for me. Alex, I don't know. I could say Christian Anderson over KO. I think his defense elevated against Iowa State. I get it, but I'm not going to start Christian Anderson alongside Elijah Hawkins. I think they can play together, but I like Christian Anderson as the almost Chance McMillan of this season for Texas Tech, where he is just that guy off the bench where he comes in and you know exactly what he's going to do, right? Like Hooper, star right there, right? Like he can get you a bucket on that second unit. He can play with guys in the starting lineup as well, but I want him to be the catalyst for that second unit, quote unquote, but still play close to starter type minutes. At least that's my opinion on it. Not to look into the future too much, but I'm excited for next year, especially with how promising Anderson has been and how we will bring back a pretty good portion of this team and the portal. Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be excited about Christian Anderson, right? I mean, he is a bona fide, and I don't like to throw this term around loosely, but for a freshman, he is a superstar. There were multiple shots against Iowa State where I thought to myself, I was like, oh, okay, that's a guy that could contend for Conference Player of the Year at one point. And you think about it, and this is not a diss towards him. This is from a fellow scrawny guy myself. He is scrawny, okay? But think about the potential he has in terms of going into a college weight room and adding 15 to 20 pounds before he's ready to go to the league. I mean, this is a bona fide NBA-type point guard that it's going to take a year, really probably closer to 2 or 3 years for him to get to where he wants to be in terms of draft stock. But this guy has a chance to truly be a first-round NBA guard, right? Like teams are going to fall in love with his skill set and what he brings because, again, he can score at all 3 levels. He can beat you off the bounce. He can play off the ball. He's played really solid defense so far. Nothing crazy, but you know that he's going to only get better as a freshman. This guy's a star, man. He's an absolute star, in my opinion. And I don't know how Dusty May and the Wolverines let him walk. But I'm very, very happy that he's wearing the scarlet and black. That's for sure. If you haven't already, be sure to like the video. Hit that subscribe button. Appreciate everybody tuning in and spending some of your Monday night, or I guess Monday evening, with me. Trying to get this recording done before this game tonight. I'm actually pretty excited about it in the NFL with the Rams and the Vikings. It's unfortunate that they had to move it due to those fires out in California. Hope everybody's safe from that, but really, really looking forward to watching that game. All right. I kind of want to talk about this next 5-game stretch, but before I do, chia pets are an underrated product. Yeah, I think so as well. They just don't look good on my head, and that's what my hair looks like if I grow it out. So that's on me. But Texas Tech's next 5 games, I think, could truly set a tone for the rest of the Big 12 slate. And For those that don't know, there's 5 games left in January. We'll talk about all 5 of those opponents, where they currently rank in KenPom, where they currently rank in the net, where the game will be taking place, and if I think Texas Tech is just better than them. But on February 1st, you play down at Houston. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm chalking that up as an L, okay? But these next 5 games, I think you have a legit chance to go 4-1, and at worst, you should go 3-2, period. If you go worse than 3-2, it's panic time. It's absolutely panic time, okay? So you start with Kansas State tomorrow. Kansas State, 132nd in net. So this isn't even a quad 2 win for the Red Raiders at this point. They would be the 96th best KenPom team, or 96th best team in the country, according to KenPom, with the Wildcats. And then you face the Wildcats, just the other Wildcats, on Saturday at home. And that will be the 16th best team in the country, according to the net, and 15th best team, according to KenPom. So again, you play the Wildcats this week, one in Manhattan in the Kansas State Wildcats, and then you come back home and you face the Arizona Wildcats. Again, if you go 1-1 here, cool. I think that's the floor, right? Like if you go 0-2, whoa, right? But you should at least bare minimum go 1-1 here, right? But I think that there's potential to go 2-0. I think you could beat Arizona. Now, the thing is this. You should beat Kansas State. You're clearly the better team, and I think that they will. The game after Arizona is the Bearcats. You got a lot of cats on the schedule this year. I didn't realize there's so many cats in the Big 12. Anyway, you go to Cincinnati, right? If you split Arizona and Cincinnati, let's say you beat Arizona at home and then lose to Cincinnati on the road, I think that that's probably the most likely outcome. So you're 2-1 there. And by the way, Cincinnati ranks as the 41st best team in the net and 38th best team in the country, according to KenPom. Then you come home and you face Oklahoma State and TCU. Those are 2 must-wins, period, end of story. Does not matter. So again, you go to Kansas State, you play Arizona, you play at Cincinnati, and then you play Oklahoma State and TCU. At worst, you should go 3-2. I think you'll probably go 4-1, beating Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, and then splitting Arizona and Cincinnati, with the most likely loss coming at Cincinnati. Because again, I think Cincinnati is better than they've shown, and they're going to want to prove that. In Texas Tech, after a win against Arizona, at least what I'm predicting, would be a reason for them to do so. So again, I think you go 4-1 in this stretch. And if that's the case, people, you are 6-3 in the Big 12 and likely in the top 4, at worst 5 of the Big 12. And all of this tournament talk would be out the window and look absolutely comical, just hashtag clown emoji type stuff, right? Like, this is clearly a tournament team. Do they need to win games? Yes. The opportunity's in front of them to do so. Right? Now they have to execute. You should beat Kansas State. You are better than them. You should beat Arizona at home because, like Matt said, losing 3 straight at home to open conference play would be a just disgusting look. Okay, so I think you beat Arizona, right? Let's just chalk up a loss to Cincinnati, and then you should beat Oklahoma State and TCU at home. That's 4-1. That moves you to 6-3 in the Big 12, and it gets you a couple of really solid wins, okay? I think you're in a great spot. And anything, call me out, right? Call me out in the comments if you think that that's unrealistic. I think that that's perfectly realistic in the sense that Texas Tech goes 4-1 in that stretch, if not 3-2 at worst. But yeah, I would agree. They could win 5 in a row there. Is that the most likely outcome? Probably not. I think the most likely outcome is 4-1, but 3-2 is there as well. And as we know, anything can happen in the Big 12. It's one of, if not the best basketball conference in all of college basketball. So again, I'm not too worried about it. I think Texas Tech could be in a really good spot come February. If they're 6-3 going into February, I feel pretty good about that because again, I think you probably lose to Houston that first game, but then things, I don't want to say get easier because Lord knows that the Big 12 is difficult as it gets in the country, right? But you play Houston on the first. You got Baylor at home. That's a quad 1 opportunity. Then you go to Arizona. That's probably a loss, right? So you start February 1-2. Then you got Arizona State at home. Not a gimme. Coach Hurley's squad they had a 5-star freshman out there at the center spot that is a bona fide superstar. But I think you win it at home. Then you go to Oklahoma State, you go to TCU. I'll be honest with you, you're probably going to lose one of those games just because I think you're better than them, but that's probably the loss where you're just like, how did Texas Tech lose that game, right? So you think about that. And then you got one more game at Houston or against Houston, and that's at home. Do you beat the Cougars? I think maybe. I think it wouldn't shock me if you split with them, but it's hard to say yes there with a game against West Virginia as well. So if you could go into February 6-3, let's just run through February and we'll go through March since there's only 3 games after that. Let's just say hypothetically you're 6-3 going into February. You'd be 6-4 after you lose to Houston. I think you beat Baylor. That's 7-4, 7-5 after a loss at Arizona. Then you play Arizona State at home. I think that's a win. You play Oklahoma State on the road. I think that's a win. So now you're at what? 9-5. Then you play TCU, 9-6 there. I think just because I think you will lose one of those games. So you're 9-6. I think you beat West Virginia at home. That's 10-6. Houston at home. I don't know. Houston's really good. Let's just say you lose that game or you win that game, excuse me. Then you go to Kansas, probably lose that. So again, you're 10-7 now. And then you got Colorado and then Arizona State. I mean, it's not, there's a very easy path. I say easy, a very real path for Texas Tech to still win 12 games in the Big 12. And it would not shock me at all if they do so. But I think if they win 10 games in the Big 12, they are a lock to make the tournament. 11 just gets you a higher seed, 12 a higher seed, so on and so forth. But I think Texas Tech is in a solid spot right now. But again, your next 5 games are critical for success here in terms of laying the foundation to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room in a very tough start to February. Again, you play at Houston, then you play Baylor at home, and then on the road at Arizona. That's as tough as a 3-game stretch as anybody will have in the Big 12 this year. So you want to give yourself some leeway there. You need to get to 6-1. You do so by, or 6-3, excuse me. You do so by going 4-1 in these next 5 games. Again, starts with tomorrow night at Kansas State. Got to win that game. You're just way better than them. You play Arizona at home. You need to not start conference play 0-3 at home. I think you beat Arizona. You go on the road to face off against the Cincinnati Bearcats and Wes Miller's squad. That'll be a difficult test. That's probably the most likely loss, in my opinion, on this slate. And then you play Oklahoma State and TCU at home. Must-win games. In terms of Oklahoma State and TCU, you have to win those, period, end of story, right? Like you just have to. But again, if you go 4-1, you give yourself a little bit of leeway there going into a tough stretch in February and allow yourself to really go as hard as possible because, again, there's no bye weeks in the Big 12 this year. There's 20 games in conference and 2 games per week. Typically, there was, in the Big 12, hey, you had 18 and you only had a couple of weeks where you played 1 game. That's not the same anymore, okay? You got 10 straight weeks of 2 games. Like, that's crazy. So it's going to be, a battle of attrition as well, but Texas Tech is still in a very, very solid spot to be in the top, I think 6, top 5 even of the Big 12. I think they're still that good of a team for sure. Let's see. This from Tech No Geek 1969. To me, the only factor keeping this team from being elite is the lack of execution during crunch time. I think there's a little bit more to it. I wish they were a little bit better in terms of execution in crunch time. I just don't know how good they are defensively. But for how not good I don't think they are defensively, I think they're that good offensively, if that makes sense. And I understand my grammar there was piss poor at best. But for how bad they are defensively, I think they're that good offensively. So I think they kind of meet in the middle, and I think the offense hides a ton of flaws from the defense. But I do think that the defense is going to get better. I really, really do. Yeah, that's for sure. Will you get into football on this live? If so, have you heard any portal updates? Nah, probably not. I mean, there's not a lot outside of Texas Tech letting go of Josh Buchenbinder, the linebacker coach. Outside of that, but that's not really too much of a surprise considering new defensive coordinator Sheil Wood's background. He's been a linebacker coach. He's been a safeties coach. I think he'll probably coach the linebackers for Texas Tech, which makes a lot of sense because you want that constant communication and kind of be on the same wavelength, with your linebackers, considering they're the ones that are going to be, communicating the plays for everybody out there. So that's really the biggest thing for Texas Tech right now, outside of the number one portal class in the country officially being on campus with classes set to start on Wednesday, January 15th. So no, nothing too crazy on the portal front right now. I don't know if you'll see anything really until probably the spring window now, because guys are trying to get on campus. They're trying to get in classes and everything. So maybe you'll see a few guys here and there, but especially in the next couple of days and maybe into next Monday, just as classes are still kind of underway, so they could still get here, but nothing too crazy on the portal front. And rightfully so. I mean, Texas Tech actually just went in their bag on this one. I mean, they upgraded this roster so damn much. We'll talk about expectations later on the channel here in the year, but really good stuff by Texas Tech. All right. And by the way, the wide receiver that you're talking about, if I had to guess, again, purely a guess here, I have heard nothing. I would guess it's Caleb Smith, the wide receiver from Notre Dame. He was committed to Texas Tech originally, decommitted, went to Notre Dame, hasn't really played too much there. I forget where he's from originally in Texas, but he's a Texas kid, track star, fits the mold in terms of the speed guy. So that's, again, maybe the guy. That's me just thinking out loud. No kind of info or anything. It's just the guy that makes the most sense because they are targeting, or at least discussing, potentially adding a wide receiver in the portal that's still in the college football playoff. He plays at Notre Dame. The math checks out, right? So there you go. If you got any more questions, be sure to drop them in the chat. Be sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button as well. Again, appreciative that y'all would spend some of y'all's Monday night with me here on the channel. Almost to 11,500 subs. How about that, huh? That's pretty cool. I appreciate each and every one of y'all tuning in and being a part of the channel. Some of y'all have been here since really early on. I mean, I recognize a couple of names that have been here since like 1,000 subs. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all spending some time and really listening to me blabble about Texas Tech sports. It's been a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun. Oh, we've also got this. Feds has been a pleasant surprise. But yeah. Real quick before we head out of here, I kind of want to look at KenPom, and maybe Reese, you're right. I don't know. That's the guy that made the most sense to me. I could be so wrong on that. Maybe he did. But again, that could just be me. I don't know. I'm just speculating there. Again, no kind of inside info there. All right, let's look at KenPom for Texas Tech men's basketball, as well as the 4 metrics that I think you as a fan, and really any fan of college basketball, should trust the most in terms of, is my team good, right? But before we do, shout out to Techno Geek 1969, becoming a member of the channel. We appreciate you, man. It means a lot that you would invest into the channel. So thank you very much. And if you want to become a member, all you got to do is go to the channel, click on the membership tab, and you get priority in terms of questions being answered and everything like that. It's a cool little perk. All right, let's jump into KenPom. All right. And you see Texas Tech is 17th in the country there. If you would have asked some people in Red Raider Nation, they would have thought, oh my God, the sky is falling. What's going on here? Well, KenPom has the Red Raiders as a top 20 team in the country. The 10th best offense. Is the defense good? It's average, to be honest with you. 54th is not good. It's not bad. It's average. But it has gotten better. It was at 69th not too long ago, but Texas Tech is right there at 17th. One of the better teams in the Big 12. You go up there, Houston is the best team in the Big 12, according to KenPom, with Iowa State not too far behind Kansas. So you've got 3 of the top 7 teams in the country in the Big 12. Arizona at 15, the team that you play on Saturday out in the 806. And then Texas Tech, according to KenPom, right ahead of Baylor, is the 5th best team in the Big 12 conference. Now, it's interesting because KenPom is one of the most well-regarded sites in college basketball when it comes to metrics, and one that I think you should definitely know about and be very trustworthy with in terms of, okay, if they think we're good, they're probably good. Now we switch over to the net rankings. Why am I showing you the net rankings? As you can see, Texas Tech is 19th. This is actually what the committee looks at. The committee actually uses this metric a lot when it comes to setting the bracket. So right now, as of today, obviously a lot can change. It's January 13th. Texas Tech is the 19th best team in the country, according to their metrics. Okay? You've got Houston as the best team in the Big 12. You've got Iowa State as the second, Kansas as the third, and then wouldn't you know it, Texas Tech again on this one, right behind Arizona, is the fifth best team in the Big 12. Again, this team is very good. 2 quad 1 wins. They have more quad 1 wins than Houston, right? You look at this, Kansas, they have only 1 less than Kansas. They have as many quad 1 wins, granted, and 3 less opportunities as Arizona, right? So you think about some of these things, and Texas Tech in a good spot here. Do they need to get more wins? Obviously. But we move on. BPI is another one to look at. Whatever your thoughts on ESPN are, I get it. But this is another thing that is heavily used in terms of where teams are ranked and also thought of nationally. Texas Tech is 19th in the country in BPI, which is Basketball Power Index. You can see some of the teams above. You got the number 1 team in the country, according to BPI, is the Houston Cougars within the Big 12. Iowa State right there, not too far behind at 5. Kansas and Arizona in the top 8 as well. So half of the top 8 is in the Big 12, with Kansas at 7, Arizona at 8. Then you go down and you keep looking. Baylor is at 11, and then the Red Raiders come in at 19. So you're the 6th best team in the Big 12, according to BPI. But you think about that, 6 of the top 19 teams in the country are in the Big 12. You are in a good spot if you're Texas Tech, okay? And one last site that I think y'all should really take seriously, that would be Bart Torvik and his T rank. So you see this on your screen right now. Texas Tech as the 17th best team in the country, and he does something similar, and obviously it's not the same exact model from the standpoint of how the number generator spews out all of these numbers, and there's a lot on there as Ken Palm, but those are the 2 metrics that are really highly thought of that maybe the committee doesn't use in terms of the bracket, but are the most accurate year in and year out. And again, that's Ken Palm, and this one right in front of you, Bart Torvik, aka T-Rank. He's got the Red Raiders as the 17th best team in the country with the 8th best offense. Excuse me, I think that's 6. Hard vision there on my end. But you look at it. Houston, number 1 in the country, Big 12. Iowa State, 7th best team in the country. Kansas, 10. Arizona, 12. Then you have Texas Tech. Again, the 5th best team in the Big 12, a top 20 team nationally. Before I head out, I just want to say this. Texas Tech is a good team, okay? Could they lose tomorrow at Kansas State and this whole conversation be, nullified? Absolutely they could. But they are a good team, and they have every opportunity to be a team that goes into the NCAA tournament and makes significant noise. I get it. It is frustrating as hell that they lost their 2 openers in terms of the home games on their Big 12 slate, right? You lose to UCF, you shouldn't do that. And in the way you lost to Iowa State, there is a real scenario where Texas Tech should be 4-0 in the Big 12, and we're not having these conversations in terms of where 20% of the people in this poll are saying that Texas Tech isn't an NCAA tournament team, okay? Nobody's thinking that. I get it. They did lose the games, right? But they have got better and better since that UCF game and continue to really be a cohesive unit, something that they just didn't get to mold and build in non-con because JT Toppin was injured. They'll be good moving forward. I think they'll be a really solid basketball team, and one that I think no one will want to play when that bracket is revealed on Selection Sunday. All right, that's going to do it. One more time, if you haven't already, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on all things Texas Tech men's basketball all year long, 100% free. Nobody else is giving you this much content each and every week on your Red Raiders. On the hardwood, on the gridiron, nobody's doing it. So if you want to join the largest independent group of Texas Tech fans on YouTube, over 11,000 strong, just like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. And as always, you know what to do. Stay safe and Wreck 'em Tech.